big changes to mention for today on this Friday, laid out by Blizzard, and they are some quite important ones since they have to do with our gear, our gearing, our item level on our character, and that's where everyone starts to perk up, because we're talking about power, we're talking about loot, and that's where things become interesting in the game. And we have two major things. One is a honestly quite expected walk back on what was the initial announcement from Blizzard about how Dinars, the Dinar feature coming out actually in just about 10 days, would have worked, which is the Dinar vendor, right? We had the entire video about it, about the release of the Dinar, which would have to only be limited to raid gear and also limited to the actual bosses you are defeating, meaning the mythic raid gear would have been limited to mythic raiders. And unfortunately, we don't have a raid where we have a couple of the best in slot trinkets coming from the early bosses. So, for example, you could have pugged those bosses. Unfortunately, pretty much all of the rarer and stronger trinkets come quite later on. So you would have basically cut off Mythic Plus only players and non-Mythic raiders away from reaching their best in slot rewards for their trinkets. So Blizzard had the first walkback, which is the fact that now they are going to be adding also a vendor for Mythic Plus trinkets from the puzzling cartel chips, Dinar rewards. Now you will have the weekly quest now will be offering you either you kill 4 raid bosses or you complete 4 Mythic Plus dungeons, and the vendor will also be added to have the Mythic Plus trinkets as well. Now the limit here, like the Mythic raid trinkets have the limit of you actually having to have defeated the boss in that difficulty, for Mythic Plus it is very simply unlock Resilient 12. So get all of your dungeon at plus 12 and you will be able to pretty much pick whichever Mythic Plus trinket you want. Now, of course, even with this addition, there are players who will still point out the disparity with this. The fact that for raiders, this will be pretty much a joke to obtain. To get plus 12s shouldn't really be that hard, so you will have access to both Mythic Plus rewards and raid rewards. If, for example, you are a 2-minute cooldown, 2-minute CD kind of spec, then you wouldn't be going for the 90-second cooldown House of Cards trinket, but rather you would want to go with the 2-minute cooldown Priory trinket, or maybe even the Soul-Letting Ruby 2-minute cooldown trinket from Mythic Plus, so you will be able to choose if you are a raider. But if you are a Mythic Plus only player, then you will be stuck still only having to choose with your Mythic Plus trinkets. Now, admittedly, there are still a few decently good high-value Mythic Plus trinkets you can find. For example, for quite a few melees, actually, the Seaphorium Pacemaker is actually one of the strongest, if not by far, for some, the strongest trinket. So actually you get to have your best in slot trinket for many melees. You also have quite a few other high-value trinkets. As we mentioned, you have the Signet of the Priory, which is very highly valued for most of the 2-minute cooldown specs. You also have the Carved Blazicon Wax, which is basically your stat stick pretty much, as well as gaining quite a lot more value now when this patch will launch, the Entropic Scardering Core. It will gain more value because it has been fixed. Now the orbs, when they spawn, actually just orbit around you and you automatically pick them up yourself. Prior to this trinket right now, while the stats are very good, it's terrible because you have to run around like a clown trying to pick up all the orbs spawning everywhere. Now instead you pretty much gain them by yourself all the time, so it also will gain value by the time the Dinars come out. However, still definitely overall the stronger trinkets are coming from the raid. At the very least now there will be less of an advantage. Now you still have, of course, the other thing that after Blizzard adding one extra reward from the Dinars, now you get one insta reward on May 13th, and then you have 2 more items you can buy, so you have 3 totals. If you are from the raid, well, there are more than just trinkets as special rewards. For example, the Juster Diamond will be available from the vendor. And talking about all special items, I believe also the special cloak, as well as the best in slots weapon, will also be available from the vendor. But For Mythic Plus, for now, it's only Trinkets. So it's a funny situation where you have 3 possible rewards, but from Mythic Plus you only have 2 slots you can buy, the 2 Trinkets. So it would leave you at a pretty awkward spot if you were doing only Mythic Plus and only Heroic raiding, for example. I think that the best possible case would be for you, by the time the patch comes out, surely the first 4 bosses will be paggable in Mythic. So you might find a few weapons in there from those early bosses. For example, there is a dagger, there is a bow coming from the early bosses, so a few players could still find a reward there just by actually looting it. But perhaps it looks like the next step of this slow and steady improvement of the Dinar system would be to add a few weapons, you know, perhaps maybe a couple of necklaces or rings for the Mythic Plus vendor, just to make it a little bit more wide in its options of things you can buy besides just trinkets. It just feels off, even just on a numbers point. You have 3 rewards you can buy and you only have 2 trinkets slots, and the only thing the vendor offers you from the Mythic Plus vendor is just trinkets. It just feels off. But it is, of course, definitely an improvement compared to the previous system we had, which massively punished the Mythic Plus only non-Mythic raiders for this Dinar system. The other point has to do with our massive power boost, which will be an even bigger power boost than this. This will actually be a 3 times, possibly even 4 times more powerful than simply getting your best in slot trinkets, which is increasing all of your item levels of your gear by 6. Because your hero track and your mid track will get 2 more upgrade slots you can upgrade, and then also your crafted gear will also be able to be extended by 6 more item levels by recrafting. Now, one thing about this. For the moment, the Gilded Augmentation Matrix is the extra item you have to put in your craft when you want to recraft your item to increase the item level by 6. Now, this is something you will buy from a vendor for 30 Gilded Crests. Now, by the time we get to May 13th, quite a few players will have already gotten to, or very, very close to, 675 item level, which will be the break point to get your Gilded of the Undermine achievement, meta achievement, to reduce the cost of your upgrades, so costing 10 Gilded Crest per upgrade level instead of 15. Right? So this means that by the time you will have to upgrade all of your gear, you will have to spend anywhere between 3 to 360, 370 Gilded Crests. This is because now, with the discount on your Gilded Crests, you will take 20 per item. You need to increase the items by 6 item levels. 3 will cost 10 Gilded Crests, another 3 will cost another 10 Gilded Crests. If you have 16 or so, depending on one hand and offhand or a single two-handed weapon, it will be around 300, 320 or so Gilded Crests. However, we can also say almost certainly you will have quite a few crafted items on you. You know, weapon, offhand perhaps, 1 ring, 1 necklace, 1 piece of armor to get your second embellishment, for example, and that will cost 30. It will not cost 20. So roughly it should be around 350, 360 Gilded Crests. If you haven't even gotten to the discount part yet, if you don't have the 675 average item level point, then it will cost about 450. It should cost you some 100 or something more than that. Now, obviously, what is saving you from an even longer time wait for this is the fact that the Gilded Crest cap will also be removed once the patch launches. So you will have no longer 90 per week you can get, but you just are free to farm these crests. Still, if you have to look forward towards having roughly 400 crests to complete your full upgrade on your character, we are looking at about 20 Mythic plus 12s to be completed. Since a single Mythic plus 12 gives you 20 Gilded Crests, then you do 20 of them, in 1 week you get 400 crests. That's enough to fully upgrade your gear by 6 item levels. Obviously, in case you are not aware, these Carved of the Undermined, Ruined of the Undermined, and then Gilded of the Undermined achievements are feats of strengths, which will be account-wide. meaning that you only need one character, you only need basically your main to reach 675, and then all of your alts will also get the discount. It will also be made even easier to reach this achievement because on the very same day you can start to upgrade all of your gear and you no longer have the cap of Gilded Crests. It's also the same day you get to complete the first weekly quest for the Dinars, and you can get yourself one of those max item level items from Mythic Raiding or from Mythic Plus. So that will also help you get even more item levels there. So just you know, be prepared for having to do a little bit of a grind to get this power increase in about slightly less than a couple of weeks. Of course, you can still help yourself shortening this farm by a little bit if you have stockpiled a reasonable amount in carved crests and in runed crests. You know, if you have resisted the urge in one of these last few resets to simply trade your runed crests for gilded crests because you wanted the power, you wanted your gilded crests quickly and you couldn't be bothered to do some keys first, so you just spent all of your runed crests to turn them into gilded crests. If you save them and you have a few hundreds, then when this patch launches it will be much easier for you to grind the 350 something gilded crests you will need to max out your 6 item level character wide upgrades you are about to get. But just be aware, even with that it will require a bit of a grind and a bit of knowledge of crafters. Yes, it will be slightly annoying knowing you have 7 crafted items and now you have to send 7 different recrafts on all of your crafted gear. But hey, is in exchange of 6 more item levels, so it's something you gotta do. Anyways, with these changes announced, at this point we are only left to wait if we will get any slightly more tinkering quality of life additions to the Mythic Plus vendor for the Dinars. Having something a little bit more than just trinkets would be pretty good. But for today though, on this Friday, we can now leave each other at the eve of this weekend. So we're starting as usual the goodbyes by thanking everyone for having watched the video, together with of course everyone else who has been supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I don't know, man, I don't know what it is about spring. We have like 4 different places around here going through renovations, so I just hear drills every day.